globally and of course back home, enabling you to fit in any conversation of intellects. In this country, we do that. And every morning, that is our mandate here from 6:30 to the hour of 9. And of course, some light moments here and there to spice up your morning and energize you to kickstart your day. Once again, I'm Robert Chirabonyonyitono, and thank you so much for keeping it with us here on UBC TV. Now, this is the time when you have a guest in studios, a topic of national importance we discuss, and you also get feedback from you. Yesterday, the Minister for Works and Transport, General Katumba Wamala, confirmed to the nation that government suspended mandatory COVID-19 testing at Entebbe Airport. And this is news that many, of course, were interested to know, because many travelers coming in the country would wonder why, if someone has just taken a PCR test before boarding and coming to Kampala, why then reach just within 70 hours again subject this person to another COVID-19 test. The minister said that government took this stance during a cabinet meeting that was held on Monday, that is 14th of February. And according to General Katumba Wamala, the suspension also applies to other entry points in this country. Now, when we talk about issues regarding the airport, in and out, one of the areas we consider is the tourism sector. Because many people come into this country because they want to tour, they want to explore Uganda. And whatever happens at the airport has a determining factor into this sector. Joining me on set this morning is the General Secretary, Uganda Hotels, Foods, Tourism, Supermarket and Allied Union, that is HTS Union, Moses Mauku. Moses, you're most welcome to our studios this morning.
Thank you so much. I wish to take this opportunity to greet all Ugandans and especially the viewers of the big TV, UBC TV. I salute you all in Jesus' name.
Well, Moses, even before we dive into this topic, I want to know, since the economy was fully reopened, of course, when the leisure industry was still under lock, in one way or the other, it has an impact to our tourism, nightlife. It has an impact to our tourism. So since then, how has business been in this sector, tourism?
Thank you so much, Brother Chiraba. Maybe I would begin from a scan through the indicators. The Ministry of Tourism issued a report, and in that report, it is clear that tourism and related businesses, under normal circumstances, has been the leading foreign exchange earner for Uganda. And to that effect, 2019, by close of 2019, 31st December 2019, Uganda recorded a 1.66, 3.5 trillion shillings. 1 trillion 663 billion 0.5.
From that sector.
That is before COVID-19. When COVID struck, by close of 2020, Uganda had only recorded 500 billion and 15. A difference of 1 trillion 0.147 lost. In a percentage, you can imagine the amount or the degree of effect that COVID-19 brought to the economy of Uganda and other economies as well. That explains that very many livelihoods were lost. Very many jobs were actually lost. The Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development also undertook a survey using certain experts. And it also recorded in tourism alone, we lost 600,000 jobs in the tourism sector alone due to the effects of COVID-19. And generally in Uganda, we lost over 2.9 million jobs, COVID-19 related effects. So it has been a very serious pandemic onto the economy, onto the livelihoods of many people, despite the fact that there are those who benefited from it, especially the people who were handling the cash relating to COVID-19. Those benefited have even built houses, as we hear. but majority of people internationally lost immensely.
Just a quick one. Since the reopening, how was the story been? Has there been swift recovery? Because maybe there's been people are eager to visit places, to move to.
You know, I will only say one thing. You also move around. When the reopening, the full reopening of the economy came, there was a lot of expectations by the business people in the tourism industry and even in other business arrangements. Little did we know that trends have changed. It comes at a time when children had just gone back, and it swept all the monies. And while children were going back, there was no proper regulation of school fees. Each school chose how much to charge, depending on the effects it has gone through. So you would find that a school where you have been paying maybe 1 million, it is 1.5. And they did not pronounce. You only go to take back the child and you find a new fees structure. And you have no option but to pay. Because many parents were saying, we are tired of these children here. They were overgrowing like mushrooms in the houses. So the reopening comes when people have no money on themselves to do what they expected to do. You can pass in places, these happening places, in a bar, and when you peep there, you find there are only 2 people in a club. So they are not making business. People only saw some bit of life on this day of Valentine's Day. That is when you saw people moving around in places. But even when they really pronounced the reopening fully, business did not come back immediately. And the other thing is, for the tourism sector, people save money to come and tour. The very people who come to tour here also had the negative effects of COVID-19 in their respective countries. So they had not saved enough. So the numbers are still fewer that are coming, though it is beginning to improve. Dealing with the effects of COVID-19 is a disease. And you know that a disease comes at a speed of a car, but going back,
it takes long. Healing is a process.
It moves like a snail. But coming, you can get an accident in 1 second, and you get sick for 20 years. But that accident, that disease that you are going to treat, came in a second. But removing it from your life, it can take you 20 years, or even until you die.
Moses, now going back to what happened, which is our topic of the day, that is government suspension of mandatory COVID-19 testing at Entebbe Airport. First, let's look at, if there is, how had this affected the tourism sector, this mandatory testing?
The news to remove or suspend mandatory testing comes at the very right time, and it is a very welcome idea which people in the tourism industry have been craving to achieve. You know, tourism industry is one of the most sensitive industries, in that even 2 or 3 statements can affect tourism industry by billions. I want to give you an example, and sometimes I always blame media people. We used to have these epidemics here: Ebola, cholera, and Chirabo comes on UBC TV and says, Ebola hits Uganda. Just 3 words. It will, once that is aired out and it spreads over the whole world, within minutes, everybody would have known Ebola has hit. When Ebola hits, how many people are we talking about? that have been reported dead. It could be one case like this.
One case has been
It can cause a cancellation
of bookings.
In the tourism facilities, in the hospitality industry, because the other people, you are all aware that we depend, over 80% of the business that we have in tourism is mainly or largely dependent on Europe, America, and those other countries. We contribute very little. We are only trying to encourage ourselves to begin, because with issues like COVID-19, where you don't expect a foreigner to come, if we're doing it ourselves, we would be adding value to the tourism industry. So information alone can kill a lot of business and can affect the economy in terms of income. So it has been a very big problem. In the first instance, the gadgets that were deployed to undertake this mandatory testing at the airport were not that fast that one could test and you get results maybe in 10 minutes. Imagine if you have ever traveled, the moment you drop at the airport, especially when it is your final destination, you don't even want to look at anything at the airport. All you want is to get into a car and go to a hotel or go home. Now you have arrived, and then you are subjected to a 3 hours wait. There could have been flight delays in other countries, and you have maybe slept over in some other airports. Then when you reach the destination, there is this problem again. And like I was telling you, tourism business is very sensitive on information. This one guest who has been delayed is going to inform others. And people will say, but why do we bother? Maybe I try other countries which are not doing this mandatory testing. So hotels, tourism has been losing money because of that. Though it is not a bad idea, it is all about preventive measures against this scourge, but it has been a hindrance in the incomes and the businesses under the tourism and hospitality. So when this message comes, it is received warmly by those that are doing business, and also the clients themselves, the travelers themselves, that waiting there. And to make it worse is that one could come, you get tested, and then they ask you to go. You are not going to be confined. Even when you are tested positive of COVID-19, you are still let to go.
So the meaning of
the
that,
purpose is not realized.
If you came with a
Even
tourism
when
visa,
is it about
they test
just
you
getting information that there are some people that are sick, or it's you are not even preventing, because you realize I'm sick, but you don't put me somewhere or confinement. You allow me to go and mix with the people. So it defeats the purpose for which we've been doing it. So it is a welcome idea that is now not there, so people can travel in with freedom and liberty, without that hesitation that we are going to be held. And you know, some people actually fear the testing process, where you are being pricked in the nose, or some people even end up vomiting. So others actually don't want to travel because of those tests. If they can avoid being tested, the better.
Moses, well said. In one way or the other, it has been an inconvenience. One would say it had lost purpose, because in case someone jetted into the country with a tourism visa, then they would be tested and let to go, then later get their results. In case you are a tourist and you don't come with a tourism visa, of course you have to be retained for the 3 hours until your results are there. But let's also look at the safety, because I know equally there are tourists that are very sensitive when it comes to their safety more and their health in terms of COVID-19 prevention. That maybe one would feel Uganda is a safe destination. You have a PCR at 70 hours before boarding on flight. You get to Uganda, still you're tested. So maybe they have that feeling of proper health system in place or preventative measures in place. What does this then mean to such tourists?
Well, there are people who are very sensitive towards their lives and health, and there are people who have been positive, and the only complaint would be the time it takes. There are people who don't mind. You know, we have had things like HIV that was equally as serious, but there are people who don't mind it, and there are those who are very critical who are very particular on how they behave and treat themselves. But there are those reckless people, or there are those who don't mind. If it comes, let it come. If it kills me, there are such people. And such people get totally offended with such practices. And we have received so many complaints, especially in the hotel facilities, in the tourism facilities. Very many people have said, maybe let me wait for a while. If this practice stops, then I will walk in. Otherwise, as of now, I don't want such inconveniences. Some of the people are elderly people, and actually many of the tourists are elderly people.
They're the ones that
They're
have
the
saved.
people that have saved money
have the
for
money.
such activities. And it has been a big inconvenience, especially that category of people. So for us in the tourism industry, we received this message with a lot of humor. And I want to also tell you that even before the full reopening, in the last quarter of 2021, business had started coming. And those in operations of the hotel businesses realized some good sales. And if you were to consider profitability for a season or for a quarter, most of them made some profits, which had not been feasible for the last 1.5 years. However, January, Feb are not very good months for the hotel industry. The business is again lower. And the other thing that has been also holding back on the business in the industry is that some of the people who bring in money into Uganda are NGOs. And some of these NGOs and or international organization agencies, they want to come and spend their own money. They do not want to send money and then use. Some of the projects are skewed that the owners of the money come with it and spend in a workshop, pick their accountability and go back. Now, those are some of the people who are saying, no, we can't travel now. It is not safe. So that money is still held. And we were waiting for such opportunities when there is liberty in movement and travel. So we expect to recover, though the recovery is going to take a lot of time. Like I was telling you, it is like a disease. It comes at a very fast speed. It goes very slowly. So recovery, we cannot claim that we are going to get back to what we used to earn. The 1,660 billion. We may not do that even in the next 3 years. We may not. But we shall steadily continue improving. And I also want to just encourage government to continuously emphasize and promote local tourism.
Well said, Moses, but I also want to now, the ball is in your hands. Previously, government had put these yardsticks. When I move around in most of these places, one thing I find Ugandans seem either to have forgotten very fast of what happened. This week, the Honorable Minister, Dr. Jane Ruth Aceng, Minister for Health, came out and said that now Uganda, we are out of the third wave. Our positivity rate has also gone down. I think it's 1.1. So one would say, yes, we are in a fairly good situation, but you all know very well that if we do not perfect one, vaccination, two, that is the standard operating procedures. Many of these places I've visited, I don't see the standard operating procedures effectively put in place. Neither have I come across any that requires a vaccination card as a guarantee for people to enjoy the facilities available.
I think, my brother, you'll realize that we have a problem of mentality in Uganda. We always want to be pushed to do things. Even things that are for our own interest. We want somebody else to push us. But one thing I want to assure you is that I have been to various hotel facilities. And in the hotels, they are trying to maintain the SOPs in the hotels, especially hotels of a certain caliber. I don't want to talk about these small eating places which we refer to as restaurants. But restaurants, the hotels of a class, these have always tried to maintain almost all the SOPs. However, when it gets to an individual person, that is where the problem begins. You see, these SOPs do not only assist us in curbing down COVID-19, but even other diseases, because they keep us clean. If you are going to wash your hands after every 1 or 2 hours, it is healthy for your own self. These masks, we inhale a lot of that when you are moving, say, on a border, and you have a mask, you are safer than somebody who is open on a border. The dirt that you inhale for even 1 kilometer is bad enough to make you sick the following hour. But people are abandoning masks as well. Some people. There are those who are strict and they continue with their masks. We just only have to encourage people that let us not forget that COVID-19 is still available and it can still kill. So we must insist that we continue with the SOPs. Even in the markets, people used to do testing, not testing, but checking. The checking has been abandoned.
Getting temperature.
Yeah, it has totally been abandoned. And even if they were to abandon all this, but encourage people to wash hands before you enter market. That's a very good practice. Because wherever you have been, you have come with your dirt or disease. At least leave it there in the water, then go and mix with another group. So I would encourage that we continue to promote the issue of SOPs everywhere in public, because it improves on our health.
Just remind you, our viewer, that you can be part of the topic of discussion this morning, or even have a question to my guest in studios, that is Moses Mauku, who happens to be the General Secretary. I had forgotten to congratulate him upon his new appointment. He was acting and now confirmed. Congratulations upon that. Elected, actually, yes, through, of course, an election. Yes. You're confirmed. Otherwise, even dropping can happen in an election. But thank you so much for being part of this show. Kindly go to our social media platforms through our WhatsApp number that is on your screen, 0709602592. Send us a WhatsApp message or an SMS message as well, and I'll be able to read out those messages, and my guests in studios will be able to respond to that as we are discussing government suspension of mandatory COVID-19 at Entebbe International Airport. But also the minister said that this applies also to other entry points in our country. That is very important. Well, Moses, just slightly, we still also see that there is so much I cannot hesitate to ask you, because you also speak for workers in one or the other. Let's look at also another interesting area briefly, because one sent me a message saying, let Moses not leave that set without answering that. That is the new Nssf law. He wants to hear your take on that briefly, because that is demand for the viewers.
Okay, thank you. I would say 1 or 2, 3 things. Nssf Act, the new act that we have, to which the president has just assented a few weeks ago, the ministry responsible for labor, that of finance, and Nssf itself, they are working around the clock to ensure that within 15 days, come 1st March, the relevant legal framework will be in place for the beneficiaries to start accessing their midterm access. That is the 20% of your savings. The pre-qualification for one to access the midterm is actually a saver with Nssf who has been contributing to Nssf for the last 10 years, for at least 10 years. Not every person who is a member of Nssf is going to access this money. The law has made it very clear that the 20% shall only be accessed by the members who have served with Nssf for at least 10 years. Yardstick number 2 is that you must have also made 45 years of age. The old law had it that you could only access after you have made 50 years of age and out of employment for at least 12 months. And or 55 years of age, you can access your benefits. And those are the things that we felt that they are not helping the workers. There is one lady who had 180 million shillings, and she had a sick son who needed treatment outside Uganda, in India, where they had wanted only 40 million shillings. That woman went crying to NSSF. She had not made the 50 years or 55. She could not find 40 million shillings to save her son. But she had 180 millions with NSSF. And NSSF, under the law, could not advance her this money. And that boy died.
Let's now move back. I hope Moses, that was Jeffert. You've got proper response to your question. Now, there is a very interesting one, but please give us your name. Someone says, so we want to prioritize business and neglect COVID-19 prevention. Well, I didn't get your name, but please, you can send me your name as well. We are prioritizing business and neglecting COVID-19. And then the other one says, Magai Ediga, student of ICUC University. Thanks for the program, but I think it is useless because COVID has become like HIV/AIDS, because the person might either be having a strong blood all in the window period when testing is done. It's difficult to find the virus there. Then secondly, why is it that the government failed to follow up the cries of people at the testing grounds? They are charging people money in order to give them those cards. I am a victim of them, and they requested for money. Well, thank you so much for your message, Maganja. Let me just also look at our SMS messages here. And one says, will Maraba also be suspended? Because they are pure thieves of COVID. Well, this language. Joseph at Maraba border point. Please, I'll end your message at that. But I think the issue I wanted to put out is, will this also be suspended at Maraba? Because you said there's so much maybe of extortion and exploitation of people there. The language is what I may not be in position to read on national TV. Then we have, on which reason to ban mandatory testing? Even government is supposed to ban mandatory testing on Uganda borders. Okay, like I said earlier, the minister in an interview said this also applies to that, but hope more information will come out from Twitter and a call interview there. But for now, in the interest of time, let's first go through those. I'll be returning later with more in case time allows. We are forsaking COVID and prioritizing business.
It is not. I think everybody here knows that government, I'm not a government spokesperson, but all I know is that government put in place a lot of preventive measures. A lot. And the president kept pleading with us to adhere to the government SOPs. Some of these SOPs were not just local for Uganda, but they were being proposed or suggested by World Health Organization, that is United Nations. So the government has done all it takes to control. And I am happy to note that Uganda is one of the countries which lost fewer people as compared to some other countries. So the government, I believe that it did its part. And we also don't have to look on businesses collapse completely, because we need the country to continue. Should we continue under lockdown forever because we fear for death? It's not only COVID that kills, even other diseases kill, even alongside COVID-19. So there must be methods or mechanisms of how to allow business also to prevail, because the economy must continue. And it has been done at a time when the positivity level has drastically dropped from wherever it was to merely 1.something%. And I think there we are not doing so badly. It is incumbent upon ourselves as individuals to also promote these SOPs. You may find the person speaking like that is not even wearing a mask when he's going to town. But I think government has done what it takes to control, and even under the circumstances that there has been free reopening, government is still emphasizing on SOPs. So that's what I can say. Then some other person was asking, why did the government fail to adhere to people's cries and instead just extorting money? I would still say that government of Uganda does not manufacture the utensils, the gadgets they use to do the testing. They also secure them. They buy. So the monies they charge, I've been one of the people who have traveled during that time, and you pay those monies. I went to Nairobi. I was running around to find where to do the testing from before you go to the airport. It is not only Uganda. Everywhere they charge for these tests. So I wouldn't imagine that it was just purposed to make money, but it was still one of the countermeasures that had been put in place.
Moses, a quick one. I think in the interest of time, this is very important because it comes direct to you. This one says, our General Secretary, Edward Jafferi from Bara, he says, our General Secretary, you've talked about issues of COVID, and thank you so much. And we thank government for suspending this because it was a problem to the sector. But you've not talked about our rights. Many people under this sector, the workers, are overexploited, people disguising under the impact of COVID-19. Let's just end with that one.
Thank you. That is Edward.
That because of COVID,
I have understood his problem.
Yes.
I mean his question. And it is a very pertinent concern. It is actually one of the things we are battling with many employers. Some genuine employers, we have negotiated collective agreements to determine how to mitigate the effects of COVID-19. There are those hiding under COVID-19 to exploit workers. There are very many workers who had accumulated gratuity. And when this COVID-19 came, they were just let go and they have never been called back. Even when there is a resumption of business, they are opting to calling in new people and leaving the workers that were there at home because they got a privilege when COVID-19 was pronounced and these people went away. So we are still battling with some of these individual employers because we have been saying, if you don't want these people to come back, they did not commit offenses not to work. They did not opt themselves not to want or wish to work. You asked them to go back home and wait. The situation gets back to normal and you don't invite the very people. You are now beginning to hire new staff and leave the other ones. The only call is that you must pay lay-off benefits those people so that they can find other things to do. Because it is your role to ensure that you pay the terminal benefits for the other person. He or she remains your employee under Section 84 of the Employment Act, continuity in employment. And the Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development put it very clear in the General Circular, which was issued in April 2021, that all employees who shall be asked to go home on unpaid leave or otherwise shall continue as employees until when the situation gets back to normal. So we have such employers who are hiding under COVID-19 situations or effects to disenfranchise workers. But we are following on them. And we are going to file a list, especially in our sector. We have been looking around for these people and we have discussed with many of them, and many of them are still hiding under those effects. And we have a report that we have made to the Minister of Gender, Labour, and we are going to get it discussed and see the best way forward. Because these people have been denied their rights. And those of you who have issues of such nature, please try to come and report so that we can see how we help ourselves.
How are you going to help such people, Moses, when we know that many in this sector don't even have contracts? You find a person has a tour company, he has a fleet of about 7, 12, 20. Then he has these drivers. Some only work when he has clientele. Others are permanent, but they have nothing. You go to these restaurants, you go to these bars, these girls come in, these boys come in tomorrow, the bouncers. So it's one of the sector there is so much informalities in this sector. Then how would you hold such an employer accountable?
You see, it is the duty of three parties under the circumstances. In Uganda, we have, not only in Uganda, internationally, we have the tripartite partnership. The workers' organizations, the employers, and government. That is under Ministry of Labour. We are supposed to work out mechanisms of how to avert such situations. We are all aware that there is a lot of informality and even internationally, governments and international agencies, we have been trying to fight to see that we reduce on the number of informality. The problem has been COVID, which has tilted the balance. Because while we were fighting for formality, right now, the only option is informality again. For people who have lost, we are talking about 2.9 Ugandans losing employment. And getting 2.9 jobs in 1 year is impossible here. So all those people are meant to go back into informal jobs. However, there are those jobs that are actually formal, but the managers or the actors there make them appear as if they're informal. You have a hotel employing about 20 people, but you are using different people each 2-3 months. You bring another lot. One, it compromises on the quality of service that you offer, because professional people will not wish to work under such circumstances. But some of them, you know, we also have a problem that every person who gets some good money builds a hotel. Whether he's knowledgeable or not, so a trader is having a hotel and he does not value that it is a professional business that requires professional people to handle. And some of such hotels have actually failed in business. If you are aware, there is a rich man in Kampala who came and started 6 hotels in about 1 year or less. And it failed. All of them collapsed.
Well, let me just leave you with these questions, Moses, in the interest of time. One is, he says, at least government has played a big role, so it's we people to follow the SOPs. That's the standard operating procedures. Then one says, good morning, Aloysius. Well, I want to know why HTS has been quiet since 2019, even when we try to reach them out. As staff, he mentions the place, NSSF contributions are not regularly put there, working conditions, medical salary, so many, but he says you've given a deaf ear on these issues much as they have tried to reach out to you. Then my last question was is vaccination free of charge? Yes, it is free of charge. If you're charged vaccination, then that is your problem, but it's free of charge at any center. Let me have your concluding remarks.
Thank you. I want to conclude with an answer, first of all, to the member who says that HTS Union has paid a deaf ear on their cries. Probably he has not visited the head office and saw in practice what we have been doing. Despite the fact that we could not secure 100% of access and help to everybody, we have tried. We count over 60 collective agreements that we did during the period of COVID-19. But we could not reach out to every employer to ensure that we do the same agreements. There are those who are dodgy, who we did not manage to secure agreements from, but we are individually pursuing them. In the interest of time, let me conclude by thanking everybody for listening to us and encouraging you to continue with the SOPs, encourage government to do more in promoting local tourism if this sector is to recover from the huge loss that we have registered over the 2 years. I want to beg to stop at that and salute everybody in Jesus' name.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Moses Mauku, who is the General Secretary, Uganda Hotels, Foods, Tourism, Supermarkets and Allied Workers Union, for having found time. Government suspended, that is mandatory COVID-19 testing. That is on arrivals at Entebbe International Airport. But now the ball is in our hands. It is your safety. It is your life. Please, let's perfect the standard operating procedures. And most importantly, go for vaccination. If you're 50 and above, go and get that booster dose. Have a lovely day. The sports team is ready to take you on. Good morning.
Raising voices.
I feel happy when my mother spends time with me. I hope all mothers will like my mother. I want my mother to reach out to all mothers. She knows how important it is to be a good mother. I promise to help my mother inspire other mothers to change.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.